With so much concern that Dodge is not going to be offering a V8 in the new Charger platform, it got me to thinking a little bit about, well, do we even need V8s anymore? See, for any powertrain engineer, the goal is to make the most power out of the smallest package, to try to get the lightest, the most power dense unit to put in any vehicle that you're working on. To build in reliability and sustainability is something that just kind of comes with the territory. These are engineered values, and they're fairly simple to put together. And for me, when I start looking at it from that point of view, I see the naturally aspirated engine as, well, as an obsolete thing. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't have its place, but if we're talking about horsepower and torque, we're talking about power density, and we're talking about 0 to 60 times, quarter mile times, and everything that comes with that, then you have to give the nod to the Hurricane 6 over the naturally aspirated V8s that it is taking the place of. And these engines are significantly more powerful and weigh about 100 pounds less. What's not to love? And for those that would try to argue that these turbocharged variants are going to somehow or another be less reliable, guys, let me remind you that these are engines that were designed to run on boost, in the same way that diesels with turbochargers are designed to run on boost, and those are all over the place in heavy industry. But it's weird that somehow or another when they get to cars, there's some kind of an issue and there's a hang-up that, well, maybe this isn't going to be as reliable or durable as a naturally aspirated engine. But there's a bit of a fallacy that comes with that. Back in the day, they were taking engines that were designed to just be a naturally aspirated block, for example, and they were adding boost to it. This created stresses that that block was never intended to deal with. And because of that, there was a higher rate of failure, a higher rate of problems that can happen when you're dealing with a platform that was never designed to do what you're asking it to do, even in mild applications. Well, fast forward to any engine that is designed specifically to run on boost, and you're going to have significant differences in the architecture, much thicker blocks, better, beefier rod end caps, cylinder head sealing that is far and away better. All kinds of different things will come into play to make that unit be as reliable as possible and to deal with the kind of pressures that the kind of boost that you're going to want to run in that engine will put through those cylinders. So guys, I have to ask, is the V8, naturally aspirated, at least in this case, going to be an obsolete thing moving forward into the future? With turbo technology being so good, with engine management being far and away more advanced than it's been even in the last 5 to 7 years, it's going to allow for engines to be smaller, make the same kind of power that their V8 counterparts would, and be better with fuel economy to boot. I gotta tell you, I would miss V8s if they didn't make them though. And this is where it kind of becomes a little bit of, well, a passion project for some folks. They'll take a look at a car and they'll say, yeah, that is absolutely stunning. The vehicle looks the part, but I just couldn't see myself driving it because it doesn't have a V8. Well, if that's your argument, what if it had a V10? What if it were a naturally aspirated V10 in that car? Would that make it better? I mean, the Viper had a V10, and it seems to be the muse for so many automotive fanboys when they're talking about an American exotic. I mean, look no further, right? But it's not a V8. It's a V10, and it's a V10, by the way, that sounds terrible. I've owned 3 of those cars, and I can tell you that with a full exhaust on the thing, it sounds like a 4-cylinder and a 6-cylinder got into an argument and just won't shut up. But it's not a 6-cylinder, it's still a V. Well, wait a minute, what about if it were a V6? Let me ask you something. You guys that are upset that the Hurricane 6 is coming in the new Charger, would it be better if it were a V6 somehow? I mean, I don't know. You can look at the GTR, you could look at the Typhoon, you could look at the Grand National. I mean, these are cars that are iconic in their own way. The Grand National, as an American muscle car, has set itself apart, especially from its V8 counterparts of its day, as being the top of the food chain, not only in terms of performance, but in terms of, Well, resale value in terms of clout, it just doesn't get any better than cars like the Grand National. And for guys that would argue again that somehow or another there's something wrong with that, the auction market would like to argue with you on this point because GNXs have been trading for six-figure figures. Holy crap, right? So for me, guys, I've got to say this. For the new Charger, it's going to have an amazing power plant duo with the standard output and the high output Hurricane 6 engines. They're going to make far and away more power than their outgoing V8s. Of course, you already know this. If they ever did come out with a V8, it would only be to satisfy the wants or the needs of folks that just have to have a V8 or it's nothing at all. Kind of like Ford did with the Coyote V8 for their trucks. And that's another thing. Not to get too far off brand here, but Ford, I think, did it right. They offer turbocharged engines for practically every car that they make, or truck, depending on what you're looking at. But they always throw in that V8 for the truck and for the car, for the buyer that might want that. Now, it is the top of the line for the car, the Mustang in this case, but they did away with the naturally aspirated V6 as a base engine, just the EcoBoost. Now, the truck has... what is it? The 2.7, the 3.5 liter EcoBoost engines? The only V8 they have is the Coyote. And again, could Dodge do such a thing? Well, they don't have a V8 in production and they don't have a V8 in any kind of development right now. So realistically, it's a bit of a moot point. But it's something that they could have done, should have done. But you know how couldas, shouldas, and wouldas fly. Post up your comments, though. I'd love to hear your take on this. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.